Yeah.
Everyone loves the idea of actors.
Yeah.
Right? But not everyone can do it.
No.
It's a lot of work. And people think it's easy. So if you want to like dispel that, you gotta just do it. To know if it's for you.
You're listening to the baddest show on the planet. Get your money right, get your game right, and everything in between. This is the Bad Hombre Podcast.
Stand up.
Hi, man. I got a special guest tonight. A friend of mine. We go back like close to 10 years.
Yeah.
Almost a decade. Fellow Costa Rican. So I don't know. For all we know, we might be cousins, second cousins. But yeah, I met you on set. We were doing a music video, and we stayed in touch, man. And now we got to reconnect.
Very happy
but
about that. Yeah.
You stuck with your acting dream.
Yeah.
I took a little break from it. I went a little different route, but you stuck with it. But before we get into what you do in acting, I want to talk about the man behind all these films, the man, the legend, the story behind your IMDb. Like, who's Brian?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you came to be Brian Quintero?
Yeah, that's a big question. I feel like my whole life I've been always trying to figure out who I am. I'm like first generation Canadian. My family immigrated from Costa Rica, and I never really thought I fit in. So I guess long story short is my older brother. I would always like copy what he did. And if he had that same shirt, I want that same shirt. If he got that gift, I want that same gift. So I wanted to be him, but we were like 4 years apart. And I got myself years later. When he graduated elementary school, I decided to kind of follow in his footsteps and do drama. And I got sort of an introduction to him through drama, and I ended up really loving it and sticking with it. So throughout my elementary years, I just loved acting. I thought I could become different people. Even though I didn't fully know who I was, I could become someone else.
Yeah.
And I felt this sort of idea, like in identity in itself, discovering new things about me, emotions, feelings. Ended up winning a drama award when I graduated elementary school, and I'm like, you know what? Let me stick to this. So thank God for my parents, because a lot of immigrant parents they'll say, oh, don't do that, don't do arts, or hey, be a doctor, be a lawyer. But luckily, my parents were like, do whatever makes you happy, and so they really supported me for that. And
They never gave you any pushback against your acting dream, and these ambitions are big.
Yeah.
And they scared your average person.
I guess they saw the opportunity of coming to Canada.
Yeah.
And they said to me, like, honestly, what makes you happy? They saw how happy it was, I was for performing.
Yeah.
In particular, my mom. My mom was all the way in. She's like, but she was very business mindset. She's very like, if you're going to do this, you have to commit, because we're not going to waste our time here, right? And I appreciate that about my mom. My mom was very like strict with the idea of like, if you want to do it, continue it and really make it count. But she saw the happiness. My dad was always like a little indifferent, but he, at the same time, he's like, do it, explore.
Yeah.
He always would say like, hey, like, still think about money, still think about doing other things, but like, he was very supportive too. They didn't really understand it. That's the thing. But my mom, she was working at a coffee shop at a sort of sports bar, and, just like getting by. I'm like 12, telling her like, I have this audition. And she would literally tell, like, it was like old school Italian guys, like, running this coffee shop. And she would literally tell like the head boss, like, no, I'm leaving right now. I'm taking my son to the audition, and we're going. And like, he literally had to go behind the bar and like make coffee.
That's amazing.
So my mom paid a cab. We go to the audition. She was like, all right, do your thing. She waited for me. I did my audition. I'm like 12 years old. Don't know what I'm doing. I come from that audition. And my mom's like, you done? I'm like, yeah, I think so. All right, paid another cab, went back to work. That was the hustle. That was like my mom just dropping everything to make sure that I was punctual. I was on time. I had the cleanest clothes. So my mom, for my acting career and for my film career, she's been number one supportive. My dad, on the other hand, he had custody over us. So as a single father in the 90s, raising 3 boys, like that's not a common thing for that to happen. So when we talk about like who I am, it really draws from my parents and everything they had to sacrifice for me to just be in this, country and kind of find who I am. So I think it ties, between the two.
Did you had a plan B, or it was plan A, or plan B stick to plan A, or like how?
I didn't have a plan B, actually. But what I did was I worked really hard in other jobs. No matter what I do, I'll put like 110%. Obviously, there's jobs that like just like your part-time jobs that you're like, oh, I don't like the employer, I don't like the manager, I don't like the setup. I want to be liberated to do other things, but I still found like, you know, maybe I could find a calling in something else, whether it was hospitality. When I was younger, before acting, I'm like, maybe like acting was never like plan A either. I actually wanted to be a firefighter, but that was sort of like a, you know, a kid's dream.
Firefighter.
Yeah. I don't know what drew me to that, but I'm like, no, I want to be a firefighter, but with no idea or concept of what they actually did when I was younger, like a kid's dream. And then I played a lot of sports. I find that I'm not trying to sound boastful, but like I could basically play like almost any sport and pick it up pretty fast. I was never like the best at it, but I'll be like a damn good player. So whether it's soccer, badminton, dodgeball, like I was naturally, because I put a lot of time and effort into that, so naturally gifted. Like I could like, I don't know, play a game I've never played and I'll just be decent.
When's the last time you tried a sport for the first time?
Funny enough, like I don't know if you call it a sport, but like actually with you when we went to the gun range.
Oh,
you know,
okay,
I've never actually fired
It's called sports shooting.
a sports shooting, right?
Yeah,
So
it's sports guns, yeah.
I
Sporting
mean,
guns, yeah.
I would say I wasn't that bad at it.
No?
I started picking up like what you were telling me.
Yeah.
Like, okay, aim a little higher and try to, if you go a little higher, you aim the target. And then at one point when we played the game, like hitting the little target, I hit it. So it wasn't,
did?
you know, I think with time, that was my first time ever firing.
Yeah.
So,
your first time, your target looked better than mine. Because my first target, because mine looked brand new. I could use it again. There was no bullets in it.
yeah.
Yeah, so yours had like, you would have killed the target. You would have killed the deer or whatever. Because you actually got some good shots in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was
But
the
it's because
first
I have a
time.
good teacher.
Yeah. Well, I guess so. Did you like shooting?
Oh, I loved it. And that's part of like why I love what I do, because it ties to like I'm always down to do something I've never done. No matter how nervous, I change that nervousness to excitement.
You were not nervous at all.
But like deep down inside, I was like, the lead up was like, what am I walking into? But the moment that I'm committed, I'm there. I'm gonna let it be and let that be the experience. And that's kind of how I treat my career, no matter whether it's acting or filmmaking or just life. If it's something I've never done, I'm like, let's go with it. If it's a place I've never been, let's go. Let me explore that way. You know, I've never been to Ottawa. You know? So
that's what I noticed with you. You're just down. You don't even ask. You know what I mean? It's like you ever watch The Town?
Oh, I love
when Ben Affleck's like, "Don't ask questions. You're just gonna come with me." And
that scene.
That's you, bro.
He's just like, I can't do the Boston accent, but he's just like, I need you to come with me now. I don't ask me any questions, and I need you to get a car. And he's just like, okay.
Okay, but am I driving? He said something. That's cool. That's you though, to a T.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool, man. Where does that come from? That sense of adventure.
That sense of adventure. I feel like that's a good question. I don't know. I feel it's maybe it's from acting, because like we have to go with our, maybe it's my early years of doing like a bit of improv. It's the yes and sort of model where you continue a scene and you're just like trying to explore and discover. But no, the sense of adventure is I feel because growing up I've always been kind of like, you know, my parents didn't have much. They still don't have that much, and so we always had to get by. We always had to like scour and make do. And like my father's impressive because he's like an incredible cook, but he didn't have the ingredients. He didn't have the product to make like fancy dinners, so he had to scrape by. But he would still kill it. He would still make an incredible meal because he was an artist in that way of cooking. Yeah, I learned a lot from him. But that idea of just like you don't have much, you don't have, you know, the tools. We're sort of conditioned in this sort of area because we had limited resources. For me, I think that sense of adventure is like, well, I've been put in this box for so long. I'm gonna take every single opportunity to go. Yeah. Because it's growing up in Toronto in the 90s, it was tough, especially as immigrant parents and growing up. And as a kid, I'm like, well, this is all I know.
So when you say tough, what do you mean by tough?
Oh, well, like upbringing, like impoverished, you know, conditions, you know, bad areas in Toronto, just because that's all my parents could afford. Yeah. And then when they came in, they were separated already, so it didn't help. So we had to make do with what we had. Yeah. So that I think that sense of adventure, belonging, is more like, well, what can I do to change that? How can I go and explore and go out there?
Yeah, you have like this. How do I make the best of this adventure? You know, and that comes from like not having those resources, or if you were spoon fed, you'd be like, oh, you'd never catch me at this place or wearing that or in this car. But because we didn't have that, we don't care. It's actually, we look at it as like, that's so cool, that's so genuine.
Yeah.
And it's funny because now people with a lot of resources, they want those genuine experiences that we had, Like I grew up a little different because I grew up in San Jose, and yeah, like it was pretty wild too. But you're always down for adventure.
So you find what I said relatable?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. And especially coming to Canada early 2000s, it is relatable, man. It's especially you add to that like language barrier and this and that. But it was tough, man. It's tough to go to Humber College and all the kids have cars and I didn't, And then you're trying to date a girl, but how do you compete with a guy that doesn't have to pay rent, doesn't have to do these things? I don't know what it is about the Spanish culture that once you turn 18, that's it. It's over. You have to take care of your parents.
Yeah, it's interesting that way.
Yeah, whereas I find Europeans, they'll let you stay till like you're like 25, 30.
There's like a sense of freedom there. It's like, come in, come out, do your thing, but you always have a place.
You know what it is, man? I think with the mentality about, well, this is my perspective, is that they always think that if I die today, what do I take with me? But there's no legacy building.
Yeah.
So you don't really see a lot of like legacy passed on generation to generation. Whereas when you look at the Portuguese or the Italians, the nono did all that work and then their kids get to have, and you know what I mean? So it's very different, man. Like I had to pretty much support my parents since I was 16. And that's just like a Latino thing.
Yeah. That sounds like my mom when she was growing up.
Yeah.
She was 16. She had to do the same. She had to contribute work. She was a workaholic.
Yeah, man. And oftentimes you take the role of a parent to your siblings as well, which I'm hoping we can change that because we'll never get out of that. Like, like Latinos, like I want to have like a Latino community. People think that, oh, okay, this is just goes with these European communities and big houses and like, So
It might be a mindset frame.
It is a mindset frame.
Yeah.
And it comes from, if I die today, what do I take with me? So I'm not going to save, or it comes from, these generational things.
Well, it's funny you say that because the main reason why I love film so much is I feel in a way that's my legacy, because I feel like film itself has a longevity. It's sort of immortal. I remember a friend telling me we were on a bus going to New York, and he said to me he just asked me like, why do you love film? Like, why do you love this? And I'm like, for a multitude of reasons. But when he's like, I love it because it's sort of my legacy. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like, it's like, sure, you can't take it with you to the grave, but like, it could live on.
It will live on.
Like
forever.
If I ever have kids, they could see me when I was young,
Bro, imagine
acting and performing. Like, that's trippy, eh?
Imagine your dad's dad had an independent film where he acted and he
Right.
directed, and you get to see, and you're like, that was like my great grandfather.
Right.
So unfortunately, we didn't have that, but you have that. So your great grandkids are gonna be able to watch your films.
And watch whether I'm acting it or not.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they'll see me and be like, that's Grandpa Dim.
Yeah, exactly. And if one of them hits it big, they'll talk about, I come from an art family because my great grandfather was an artist and he was this and that. So it runs in the family, right?
Which I don't fully know if my family I don't think my family comes from an artist background. Like my grandpa who passed away, on my mom's side, he was like bus driver most of his life in San Jose. Funny enough. And and then my other grandpa on my dad's side, he was like a ranch farmer. So it's very like hard labor focused kind of work. It was always like break your back, make the money, take care of your family. That was like old school hardcore mentality. But it was like, God forbid you want to draw something,
And
that's
that's
the whip.
That's Costa Rica for you though. So it's actually the fact that you were in Toronto that's open minded. It's such a blessing because in Costa Rica it's very hard, man. Like, unless you play soccer,
Right.
anything outside of that, it makes them uncomfortable. And I think it comes because Costa Rica has such good education. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a singer. He's like, yeah, man, it's because of that. Like, when you think about rap, hip hop, or these actors, they come from this, rap was the ghetto, right? But in Costa Rica, I guess the education is good. And, God forbid, like, I remember when El Rookie and all these people from Panama started making music, if you got caught listening to that, they used to make fun of you. They used to kick you out of school. It was very regimented. It's a little bit more loose now, but.
Oh, yeah, even even just watching shows like South Park. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I remember my parents are like, "That's the devil stuff.
Yeah.
Don't watch that."
That's
I'm
the
like,
thing too,
and I'm like,
bro.
they're just kids swearing.
Yeah.
Like, or the Simpsons. Oh, like without like it's
The Simpsons.
It's not good. Like
Yeah.
you're being corrupted. But in fact, the Simpsons has been like beyond its
Accurate.
years and educating people.
Yeah, bro.
And building pop culture. And it's like it's go.
It's
you know.
monumental. Yeah, man. Like I remember. You remember? I said, ha.
Yeah.
You know, bro, like I remember in Sunday school, they spent the whole 2 hours talking about how like that song had so many satanic
Subliminal messages.
messages.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, mira lo que se avecina a la vuelta de la esquina viene Diego. It's just like they break it down and they're talking about that's God and I said it's the devil and if you do it, you're gonna go to hell. Everything go to hell. And they'll find like the Virgin Mary in a piece of toast and the news will come by and it's just this belief.
It's like, come, watch this. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is it's so domineering in South America.
Yeah.
In Central America, it's like, and again, nothing wrong. But
No.
It's really like through the colonization,
Yeah.
it's just so heavy with the religion that, and plus like with not that exposure to sort of the first world
Yeah.
or America in itself, like they didn't have outside thoughts of what they were conditioned in.
Yeah.
So it was hard for them to break those habits.
It's very
That's
hard.
again outside perspective. Just
And
going
that's-
visiting those countries, it was like your whole life is surrounded with very focus on religion.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't take that away from anyone, but it was an interesting perspective, like seeing how they live, and it's like, oh wow.
Yeah, it could be limiting too, but the
Yeah.
fact that for whatever reason you ended up in Canada, that's not an accident. And the fact that you got into drama and stuff, so there's something much deeper than that. Like there's some impact that you have to have, like for your family, right? Because there's nobody else doing it.
And it's great that you say that because full circle, I've been building myself as an artist to get really good and become a better storyteller.
Yes.
And slowly but surely also work stories that have to do with on-screen representation. So I want to see myself, whether it's not me as an actor, but like I want to be seeing my own people on screen.
Yeah.
Because our upbringing in film is predominantly, and they're incredible, white, A-class actors.
Yeah.
But I never saw Costa Rican on screen. I've never seen a Latino on screen
No.
like growing up, right? And now it's changing. That
Yeah.
demographic cinematic landscape is changing. But for me as a storyteller, I want to represent the stories that my parents went through. I want to become a better storyteller with the stuff I've been through.
Yeah.
And so through all these like many practices in film and in performing, I hope one day I can do that. And I feel like in a way that's my impact. Full circle.
Yeah.
That my family, it wasn't an accident because I hope one day I could tell their stories.
No, it's not accident, man. It's not accident. It'll be a waste if you don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
That's why you have to stick to it.
Yeah.
Because then you have to show the world about you, and it's your responsibility to do that. Otherwise, you're priving the world from listening to the stories because you had this responsibility to bring those stories back to life because you were given the gift of storytelling. And if you think about it, storytelling and communication is the second most important skill to have in society, right? The second highest paid people in the world are communicators. The first is the visionaries, like Elon, Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
But the second highest paid and most influential people are people that use voice and storytelling for a living. That's why politicians are so powerful. That's why Joe Rogan has such influence, And I mean, look at Dana White, probably worth 3 times more than Joe Rogan, but who has more influence?
Right.
Rogan. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, but who's got more influence? Rogan, because he's got the gift of storytelling and communication.
And he's got his audience.
Now you have that gift. It doesn't, bro. It's like 1 in a million to have that gene. And not only do you have it, you've been nurturing it and feeding it and cultivating it. And now you make these crazy films. So it's like you can't stop.
Yeah,
You
honestly,
can't
even
stop.
if I wanted to, I can't. It's like,
No, because it's
but
bigger
my
than you.
brain, it just like it just wants. It's like, okay, you want to do this now, do that. What I'm trying to do is be more selective. for
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
and kind of zone in on those very stories to build, but that
Yeah.
takes time.
Yeah.
And the only thing I would say to that is I would have to tell it and execute it exactly the same way I envision it. Otherwise, I can't do injustice to the story either.
Right.
Because production in itself is a whole other operation. But I feel like as I'm getting better at storytelling, I feel like the hardest storytelling is when it's so deep and personal.
Yeah.
And so I'm building myself a sort of roadmap to get to that point.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And best thing is just stay consistent. Consistency is key.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
if you stay so consistent, it'll be rational for you to not do well because you've done so much work. So it's like if you spent 10,000 hours shooting hoops, it's gonna be rational for you to be bad at shooting hoops after that long. You know what I mean?
even if you try to
even
miss.
if you try to miss, right?
Yeah.
So that's why like, it's important that you stick to it, and that's why I respect that you stuck to it, and like I took a step aside to do other things, and yeah, coming back now and seeing how much you've done, you progress is crazy, bro. It's actually pretty inspiring, man.
Thanks, man.
And that's why like I want to hopefully work with you to come bring these stories to life too.
Yeah, and and for me, it's all about there has been so many people in my circle who have helped me
Yeah.
grow and nurture that, and I never really like, even if a young filmmaker asks like, oh, what could I do to do what you do? It's like there's no right answer. You just have to do.
Yeah,
you just have to
start.
be. This has been the topic conversation of my time here is just be and do, because from doing you'll navigate what it is. Okay, I got to work that better. I got to do that. But if you never put it to practice, if you like literally pick up a camera and just shoot, and you'll learn something.
Yeah.
It might not be monumental, but it's about your own process of learning and editing and this and that. I don't know how to edit. Like, you're a talented editor. Like, I don't know how to do that. But what I do know is putting the right people together. So I'll make sure I educate myself enough to understand editing in a sense.
Yeah, yes, you have enough context that you know enough that you can delegate properly.
Communicate, exactly, with the communication. So there's no roadmap, and everyone's journey, some people could pop off right away. Some people will take a long time cruising. When I think about myself, I'm still cruising. I got a long way to go, but I'll get there. You know, I will get there.
And then you'll be an overnight success.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or then sometimes those people pop off. That's all they did.
Yeah.
Because they didn't either stick with it or whatnot. And so, but even for yourself, the fact that you took this hiatus in full circle, you're coming back, it was always there with you. And whether or not you think it or not, you've actually been doing your work. You've been understanding the business side of it.
Yeah,
so
of course. Yeah,
you could take what you learn and put it back into the creative.
Oh yeah, business wise, like I get it.
Yeah.
And I get so much like.
And I have to educate myself on it. It's show business at the end of the day, right?
And it's their business.
It's the business.
It's the business, bro. There's nothing like it. It's crazy.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that before.
Yeah, I mean, I've done really well in the auto industry, and it doesn't even come close, you know. And people live their worlds, like your environment. Let's say you're in construction, you have a construction company, that's your world. You think that's it. Or if you're a bodybuilder, you think the bodybuilding world, that's it.
Right.
But then you step back and you look at these other industries, and you realize the show business is nothing like it, bro. It requires everything.
All art forms coming together, all businesses, all departments,
everything.
That's why anytime, like, I do my best, you know, it's hard to, but that's why there's credit rolls for a reason.
Yeah.
All those people worked on it. Like, other than like the video game industry, like that's as or even bigger. Yeah. Movie is the industry. Like, it is the biggest one.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild, man. So you eat, sleep, and breathe filmmaking. That's what you do.
Yeah. I mean, I try to work on other things. I'm just constantly thinking about ideas, even for my own life. Like, hey, like, what am I going to do tomorrow? Or, hey, how will this benefit or help me or creatively? So I'm constantly creative. I took many years to understand production, but I realized being a producer was not, I'll still do it. I know how to do it. Sort of that business mindset that we were talking about. I can do it, but I know other people can excel better. And then I realized by doing it that that's not me. So I kind of reverted back, which is funny because I still get approached by people saying, hey, like, you're a really good producer. Yeah. I'm like, maybe I'm a really good connector. Maybe I'm really good this or that, or maybe I'm good at putting things together. But in my own perspective, I think I'm all right. I understand production from beginning to end. But after that, how to sell a film, I only have I've limited knowledge. Yeah. Because my mind always goes to creative. It always goes, okay, what about this story? And like dig deeper and like why? And do this research. Why is this important and relevant? How does this affect people? What is this conversation that people should be having? I like that deep thought rather than where is the film going? You know, where is the project going? But yeah, no, my mind's always thinking about the next thing.
So what part of the filmmaking process is the one that makes you feel the more alive?
I think the conceptualizing phase. I really enjoy it.
Expand on that a little bit.
Yeah. I like talking. So I'll think of an idea, or I'll maybe have a dream, or lightning in a bottle. I'm having conversation and I hear somebody's story. I'm like, wow, that's a really interesting take. And I find myself, if I keep thinking about it over and over and over again, my mind will definitely go, oh, well, maybe that could be adapted in some way.
Yeah.
Or I could be reading something. And then I wouldn't just necessarily write it. That's what I used to do. I'll just write it and try to write a script and then try to make it happen and then realize, it's dead in the water. No, instead, if I constantly think about it, I'll have a conversation, say, with you. And I'll be like, hey, what do you think of this? You're like, oh, that's cool. But what would happen if that happened? Oh, well, that's wonderful. And then I'm like, let me put some images together. Let me write a log line. And if I'm still addictive, it's like an addiction almost.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
If I'm still thinking about it and I believe it's that good, I'll keep writing it until the point I write the script and then try to make it happen. I have to feel so compelled and passionate about it that my entire sort of being has to go towards that, making that. It's hard to describe. It's sort of like I'm magnetized to it. Like, so if my entire thoughts, my efforts goes into that, I will build my gravitational pull to it. So I think of a project, I think of an idea, I heard about it, or I was asked to do something as a director, say. I'm like, ooh, I really like that, but here are the minimums. Here, let's work on this, let's work on that. And unless the team collectively wants to do that, then I'll keep going because I'm getting also the motivation from my team. And so, or whoever I'm working with. So I feel like depending on concepts, that's my favorite part. Because really, I sometimes have been offered to like direct something and I look at the project and I try. And when you feel like you have to force that creative, it doesn't work.
Then you hate it. You resent it.
Yeah. And well, sometimes it doesn't even happen. It falls apart because the visions are not aligned, right?
Yeah.
But I definitely love seeing. And also as a performer, I love the process. You know, it's cool, the product, and you see all the work that's been done, but I really just enjoy these little moments on set or these little interactions I have with other performers or working those relationships with directors, writers, producers, collaboratively.
Yeah.
Making something possible when we thought it was impossible. That idea, that feeling is the best.
It's the best, bro. And then you get to sit back and watch it. It's such an accomplishment.
Especially on the big screen, and you see the other people's reactions. You're like, sometimes because I've seen the film so many times through editing, all that process. I would literally, like, if the big screen's in front of me like this, I'll look over and just watch this person's reaction.
Yeah.
And I'm like, here it comes. And they're like, I'm like, yes.
Well,
they're like little wins.
It's like you were playing a film that you did, and you were like watching our reaction.
Yeah.
You know, and I could tell how much you enjoy it because the way you write it has this plot twist and stuff, and they just catch you off guard and like, fuck.
Oh, you caught me looking at you.
Yeah. Looking at,
Because I know I have already experienced that.
Yes.
And that experience is that conceptualization phase, which is like
Right.
when I thought about it, I'm like, that same. If I can see it projected onto you on the big screen, that was the same feeling I had when I first wrote it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to recapture that with the audience.
And it's so cool, man. So I couldn't imagine like getting to a level where
the aha moment, I guess.
Yeah. So we are chasing for that at scale. We're chasing for that, obviously, with a big production, a bigger story, a bigger cast. And that's the dream, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we just got to keep, it'll get there. We just have to keep honing those skills and keep at it and keep meeting the right people.
I think that's why acting is so important to me. Acting has been my biggest teacher for filmmaking. I never went to film school. I went to acting school at Seneca College for acting voice program. And then I did other workshops. And just being on set allowed me to be like, pay attention.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you do? Hey, what do you do? I didn't know anything about film. I knew there's positions. I'm like, what's an AC? What's an AD do? And I just ask these questions because as an actor, we have to be curious. We have to be explorative and discover new things and be in that moment. But I had the curiosity of how is film put together?
Yeah.
How's TV put together?
Yeah.
So that sort of inner child curiosity.
It is an inner child. Yeah.
That idea of playing and asking questions. I go up to people and I'm like, what do you do? And I kind of just started, I'm like, oh, that looks like fun. And I would tell any actor, you should try making a project. You'll learn a lot about yourself. And I feel like it made me a better performer because now I know the relationship between me and the camera.
Yeah.
I know the relationship of what a director, but even before the director asks me, I already have an idea of like how I would want to do it, both in front and behind the camera. And so that's constant performance aspect allows me to think outside the box and be like, oh, wow, I thought of a new idea.
Yeah, man. It's like, say you're a really good soccer player, and then one summer you decide to coach a little team.
You got it. That's it.
So you learn a lot more. And the best way to master something is by teaching it, right? You ever like start teaching something, you become so much better. You ever help a little brother with homework, then you actually get better at it. Martial arts, doesn't matter what it is.
Right.
Yeah, man. Do you like acting better do you like being in front of the screen, the camera, or?
I love both. I
both,
literally, I'm just more selective with directing. I think that's what I have to hone myself. But no, if I have an opportunity on a character I could sink my teeth in, and play a part that like really moves me, and again, play, explore, create, and really zone in on a character. I love that for me. It's call it my therapy. It's my outlet. But directing, it's similar but not the same. There's a different kind of outcome. It's now I want to project a feeling that I want my audience to experience. And so there's one that's a personal one, performing, and I got it. It's like working out. Nice. I feel great. But then, and I feel like I did my part. But then there's the setup, the experience, and that's why I have to be more selective on the directing side.
It's it's a lot of power to have, man. Like, imagine somebody
big responsibility
work their whole week and they want to lose reality for a bit, for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and they put that trust on you to go watch, so you can take them away from the day-to-day, from the problems they're having at home. And they watch your film and they lose themselves and they come out feeling great, or sometimes they feel disappointed, but like when you hit it, it's what it's all about, really.
That's why I think a friend of mine explained it is like, it's called entertainment. Enter and tame them.
Okay.
Keep them there.
Yeah. Like,
and I love that he broke that word down for me. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't like, it's so obvious.
Yeah.
But that's our job.
Yeah.
Our job is to keep them there and give them that experience that you're talking about.
Yeah, man. Because people's lives gets repetitive and they trust you, so they can lose their routine a little bit. When I go to the movies, I lose myself in the films, and I love it so much. That's why it got me into it.
Yeah.
Watching films, and I'm like, this is amazing. How do I even become that? How do I get into this?
Right.
This classics. I don't know. You grow up watching films, and they play such a big impact in your life. But like, I wanna do that for somebody. I wanna, with my own stories.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful, man. Yeah, man. Hopefully, this is not gonna be the last podcast we do.
No.
But any final thoughts for any younger dreamers out there? Anybody that want to start acting or producing film?
Yeah. Like I said earlier, you just have to do it. You might not know the answers. You might not know how to, but you talk to people. Yeah. And I promise you, one person will know. I can't tell you how many times I would talk to somebody. I'll give you an example. Like, I don't know, at TD Bank or some sort of random, like, I could be at a walk-in clinic.
Yeah.
And the person beside me sitting down, who's just there for his daily checkup.
Yeah.
I say, hey, how's it going? And he's like, yeah, I'm cool. Like, how are you? I'm like, oh, what do you do? And they're like, whatever. They tell me about their job, and then they tell me, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm an actor. 9 out of 10 times, this person has a friend who's an actor.
Yeah.
Or is a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And you're just like, you're like, oh, but do they really get it? And turns out, like, they're really connected.
Yeah.
Everyone loves the idea of actors.
Yeah.
Right? But not everyone can do it.
No.
It's a lot of work. And people think it's easy. So if you want to, like, dispel that, you got to just do it. To know if it's for you. I have a friend, phenomenal actor. He was like a up-and-coming soccer player, and he had a bad leg injury. I remember he came up to me. We became friends at the job we were working at, and he asked me, he's like, what do you have to do for acting? And I told him, go here, go there, go there. And now he's blowing up. He's doing better than I am. And it's amazing. I'm so happy that, and anytime we talk and we become really good friends, he tells me, he's like, dude, I remember that first conversation about me asking you about acting, and all these wonderful things happen. I'm like, I'm so happy for you. But it's the manifestation. If you want it, you got to think it. Yeah. And then you got to try it. And be okay to say, it's not for me.
Yeah.
How many times has that happened for you, where you wanted to do something, you're like, nah, it's not for me. Yeah, that's okay.
It doesn't speak to me.
But you need to try acting, and it's a scary thing. It can be. And that applies for filmmaking too. But for anybody, we got YouTube, we got social media, you can ask questions in forums, and I promise you, as long as you're putting it out there, you'll get your answer.
100%, bro. Because to wrap things up, like, I stepped aside from it, and then I built a business and did really well, and I was not happy at all. And I could have just keep working on my business, but something's missing, and it's that creative expression and filming and being behind or so. Yeah, man. And we connected, and just watching the films that you put out, it's so inspiring. So yeah, man, keep doing what you're doing, bro. I think you have a lot to give. I don't think we've even seen what you're capable of yet. It's getting close to hitting that threshold, that mark. You're about to hit a home run, so it's gonna happen.
Thanks,
you just gotta keep at it. You know what I mean? Now it's on you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like You know the guy that keeps traveling for gold and then he turns back, but he was like this much close to hit the gold mine.
Yeah.
You're like this. I feel like.
Thank you, man.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
it.
So it's just keeping at it, bro.
I know
But-
you're gonna do great things too. So
Yeah,
now
100%.
that you're back, that's great. And you can ask me anything anytime.
Of course, man. That's the one thing about this industry. Is the amount of self belief you have to have. It's almost irrational.
It's enormous.
And
yeah.
people don't get it.
Yeah.
But you're the same way I am, bro. Like there's nothing that's unattainable here in my eyes. I can do everything. You know what I mean? That's the way I feel. So I mean, so yeah, man. Cool stuff, brother. I'm gonna put your socials on the description here.
Perfect.
But this was great, man.
Gracias, pura vida.
Pura vida, man. Pura vida.